2 weeks passed after the injection, and Danny Miller was learning what it meant to be something more than human. It started with small things. A cut on his finger while preparing food in the cafeteria healed in less than 5 minutes. He watched the skin close itself, knitting together like magic, leaving no scar behind. He stayed awake for 3 days straight without feeling tired. He could read small text from across a large room. He could hear conversations happening too, always away. Then came the bigger things. During a training exercise in the ship's gymnasium, Danny held his breath underwater for 18 minutes. The ThHFY instructor, a massive creature named Groth, had to pull him out because he thought Danny was dead. But Danny was fine. He'd not even felt the need to breathe. A few days later, Danny was moving heavy medical supply containers in the storage bay. Each container weighed about 300 pounds. Before the injection, he could barely lift one with both hands. Now he picked them up like they were made of paper. He stacked 6 of them on top of each other without breaking a sweat. He was careful to hide these changes. He pretended to struggle with the containers when others were watching. He faked being tired after long shifts. He acted surprised when he beat his old running records, but one person was not fooled. Nathan. Cole had been Danny's friend since basic training back on Earth. They had served together in the Mars Uprising. They had saved each other's lives more times than either could count. Nathan knew Danny better than anyone else in the universe, and Nathan knew something was wrong. "You are different," Nathan said one night as they sat in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Something happened to you." "I do not know what, but I can see it." Danny kept his eyes on the window. "I do not know what you mean." "Come on, Danny. I have known you for 12 years. You used to limp when your shoulder hurt. Now you move like you have never been injured. You used to get tired after a double shift. Now you work 3 shifts and still have energy to spare. And yesterday, in the gym, I saw you lift that weight rack. The whole thing. When you thought no one was watching." Danny said nothing. "I am not going to tell anyone," Nathan continued. "I just want to know what is going on. Are you sick? Is it some kind of alien drug? Did you make a deal with one of those Krethian traders?" Danny almost laughed at that last one. If only Nathan knew how close to the truth he was. "I cannot tell you," Danny said finally. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I trust you. But whatever this is, be careful. The aliens on this ship are always watching us. They're looking for any reason to send us back to Earth." Danny knew Nathan was right. He had seen the way some of the alien crew members looked at humans. Like they were animals in a zoo. Like they were children playing with things they did not understand. Late that night, Danny met Kira in a small storage room deep in the lower levels of the ship. She had set up a secret medical station there, hidden behind boxes of unused equipment. Every few days, she ran tests on Danny's blood, his cells, his brain activity. Tonight, her face was even more serious than usual. "I have finished analyzing your latest samples," she said, holding up a data tablet. "The results are frightening." "Frightening how?" "Your body is not just surviving the compound. It is improving it. Your cells have taken the ThHFY formula and made it better. More efficient. More powerful. The original compound could only regenerate tissue. Your version can do so much more." She showed him the tablet. Danny did not understand most of the numbers and charts, but he understood the look on Kira's face. "Your bones are 3 times stronger than a normal human's," she explained. "Your muscles can produce 4 times the force. Your immune system can fight off diseases that would kill any other carbon-based life form. Your brain is processing information faster than our scanners can measure." Danny stared at the data. "How is this possible?" "That is what I am trying to understand." Human DNA is very unusual. It is highly adaptable. Your species evolved on a planet with constant changes in climate, in predators, in disease. Your bodies learned to change quickly to survive. But I never imagined it could go this far. What do you mean? Kira set down the tablet and looked at him with all four eyes. Every other species in the galaxy has specialized. The Krethians became strong. The Volnorians became intelligent. The ThHFYians became warriors. Each species found one thing and became the best at that one thing. But humans never specialized. You stayed flexible. You stayed adaptable. And now that adaptability has allowed your body to take an alien compound and make it your own. Danny thought about this. On Earth, humans had always felt like the underdogs of the galaxy. They were weaker than ThHFYians. They were shorter-lived than Volnorians. They could not survive extreme temperatures like Krethians. They had always assumed they were the least impressive species in the galactic community, but maybe they had been looking at it wrong. "There is more," Kira said. Her voice was quieter now, almost afraid. "I have been running simulations, trying to predict what will happen to you over time, and the changes are not stopping. Your body is still evolving, still adapting. In 6 months, you will be twice as strong as you are now. In a year, 3 times. I cannot predict where it will end. Perhaps it will never end." Danny felt a chill run down his spine. "Am I still human?" Kira did not answer right away. That silence told Danny everything he needed to know. "You are still Danny Miller," she said finally. "You still have your memories, your personality, your soul if you believe in such things. But your body is becoming something new, something that has never existed before." They sat in silence for a long time. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound. "What do we do now?" Danny asked. "We keep this secret. We continue the tests. And we hope that the changes remain positive. If your body starts to break down, if the compound begins to cause damage, we will need to tell the ship's medical team. But for now, we wait and we watch." Danny nodded slowly. He had never been good at waiting. He was a man of action, a soldier who ran toward danger instead of away from it. But this was not an enemy he could fight. This was something happening inside his own body, changing him from the inside out as he left the storage room and walked back to his quarters. Danny passed a group of ThHFYian soldiers in the hallway. They were laughing about something, their deep voices echoing off the metal walls. One of them bumped into Danny's shoulder as he passed. "Watch where you walk, little human," the ThHFYian said with a sneer. The old Danny would have apologized and moved on. The old Danny knew that picking a fight with a ThHFYian was suicide. They were bigger, stronger, and faster than any human could hope to be. But Danny was not the old Danny anymore. He felt his muscles tense. He felt a strange energy building inside him, wanting to be released. For a moment, just a moment, he imagined what it would be like to grab that ThHFYian and throw him across the hallway. Then he took a deep breath and walked away. Not yet, he told himself. Not now. But someday, these aliens would learn that humans were not the weak little creatures they thought they were. Someday, they would understand what humanity was truly capable of. Danny smiled as he walked into his quarters and closed the door. Someday was coming sooner than anyone expected. Danny Miller walked through the white halls of the Galactic Medical Vessel Sanctuary with his hands in his pockets. He had been living on this massive ship for 3 months now. 3 months of strange food, stranger aliens, and the constant feeling that he did not belong here. He was a combat medic from Earth. He had served in the Mars colony uprising and had seen things that still gave him bad dreams. When the United Earth Defense Corps asked for volunteers to join the first human medical exchange program with alien species, Danny had raised his hand without thinking. He wanted to learn. He wanted to see what was out there. He wanted to forget the war. Now he was not so sure it had been a good idea. The sanctuary was home to dozens of different alien species. Some looked almost human. Others looked like nothing Danny had ever imagined. There were the Velnorians with their 4 purple eyes and blue skin. There were the Krethians who were made of living rock and crystal. There were the Torvakians who stood 8 feet tall and had more muscles than seemed possible. And then there was Danny, just a regular human. 5'10", brown hair, brown eyes. Nothing special at all. Today was his routine physical examination. Every crew member had to get checked every 2 months. It was a rule. Danny did not mind. The medical bay was one of the few places on the ship where he felt useful. He understood medicine. He understood bodies and blood and healing. Even if the bodies here were very different from human ones. He entered the examination room and sat on the metal table. The room was cold and smelled like chemicals he could not name. A moment later, the door opened and a Velnorian nurse walked in. Her name was Kira. Danny had seen her around the medical bay many times. She was young for a Velnorian, which meant she was probably around 200 years old. Her skin was light blue, and her 4 purple eyes were always moving, always watching everything at once. "Danny Miller," she said, reading from a tablet. "Human, male, 32 years old. Here for standard examination." "That is me," Danny said with a small smile. Kira did not smile back. Velnorians rarely did. She ran her scanner over his body, checking his heart rate, his blood pressure, his organ functions. Everything seemed normal. "You have an old injury," she said. "Left shoulder. It causes you pain." Danny nodded. "Got hit by shrapnel during the war. The doctors on Earth fixed it, but it never healed right. Hurts when it rains, or when I sleep on it wrong, or pretty much any time, really." Kira made a note on her tablet. "Human bodies are very fragile. Thanks for reminding me." She turned to a cabinet and pulled out a small tray with several syringes on it. Each one was a different color. Blue, green, yellow, red, and one that glowed with a strange silver light. "Standard vitamin injection," Kira said. "All crew members receive this." Danny rolled up his sleeve and looked away. He had never liked needles, even though he had used them on other people hundreds of times. There was something about getting a shot himself that made his stomach turn. He felt the cold touch of the syringe against his arm. Then a small pinch. Then it was over. "Done," Kira said. Danny looked at his arm. Then he looked at the tray. Then his blood went cold. The blue syringe was still there. The green one was still there. But the silver one, the one that had been glowing, was now in Kira's hand. Empty. "Wait," Danny said. "What did you just give me?" Kira looked at the syringe. Then she looked at the tray. Then all 4 of her purple eyes went wide with horror. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no. Kira, what did you give me?" Her hands were shaking. The empty syringe fell from her fingers and clattered on the floor. She grabbed Danny's arm and stared at the small dot of blood where the needle had entered. "This was not for you," she said, her voice breaking. "This was not for humans. This was compound ZEF9. It is an experimental regenerative serum. It was designed for Krethians. Only Krethians. Silicon-based life forms." Danny felt his heart start to beat faster. What does that mean? What happens to carbon-based life forms? Kira could not look at him. They die. Every carbon-based species we have tested it on has died. Within minutes, their organs shut down. Their blood turns to poison. They die in great pain. Danny stood up from the table. His legs felt weak. How many minutes? 3, sometimes 4. Danny looked at the clock on the wall. It had already been 1 minute since the injection. He had 2 minutes left to live. Maybe 3, if he was lucky. He thought about his mother back on Earth. He thought about his little sister and her 2 kids. He thought about all the things he had never done, all the places he had never seen, all the words he had never said. 2 minutes. But then something strange happened. Danny felt a warmth spreading through his body. It started in his arm where the needle had gone in, and then it moved outward, flowing through his veins like hot water. He looked down at his arm and saw his veins glowing faintly blue under his skin. What is happening? He asked. Kira was staring at him with all 4 eyes. I do not know. You should be convulsing. You should be screaming. You should be dying. 3 minutes passed. Then 4. Then 5. Danny was still standing. He was still breathing. He was still alive. And his shoulder, his bad shoulder that had hurt every day for the past 6 years, felt completely fine for the first time since the war. I feel good, Danny said slowly. I feel really good. Better than I have felt in years. Kira grabbed his arm again and pulled out her scanner. She ran it over his body, her hand still shaking. What she saw on the screen made her stumble backward. This is impossible, she said. Your cells are not dying. They are changing. They are adapting to the compound. They are integrating it into your DNA. Is that bad? It is not bad or good. It is impossible. This has never happened before. Not with any species. Not ever. Danny looked at his hands. They looked the same as always. But he could feel something different inside him. Something new. Something powerful. Kira grabbed his shoulders and looked into his eyes. Her grip was desperate, her voice urgent. You must stay silent about this, she said. You cannot tell anyone what happened here. Not your human friends. Not the other doctors. Not anyone. Why not? Because if the Galactic Council learns what I have done, they will terminate the human exchange program. They will say your species is too unpredictable, too dangerous. They might even quarantine your entire planet. Danny stared at her. All that because of one mistake? You do not understand. The Council is already suspicious of humans. Your species is young. You are aggressive. You spread across your solar system in just a few centuries. Many council members think you are a threat to galactic peace. This will prove them right. Danny thought about all the humans on Earth, all the colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. Billions of people who had nothing to do with what happened in this room. Okay, he said finally. I will stay silent. For now. But you need to tell me what is happening to my body. You need to figure out what this compound is doing to me. Kira nodded. I will run tests. Secret tests. After hours, when no one else is around. But you must act normal. You must pretend nothing has changed. Danny rolled down his sleeve and took a deep breath. Nothing had changed. He was still Danny Miller. Still human. Still just a medic from Earth. But even as he told himself these things, he knew they were no longer true. Something inside him had shifted. Something fundamental. Something that could never be undone. He walked out of the examination room and back into the white halls of the sanctuary. Aliens passed him without a second glance. To them, he was still the same unremarkable human he had always been. They had no idea how wrong they were. The council chamber of the sanctuary was a massive circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from every species on the ship sat in those seats. Belnorians, Krethians, Torvakians, and a dozen others Danny could not name. All of them were staring down at Danny and Kira, who stood alone on the platform below. High Commander Thrall sat in the highest seat. He was an old Velnorian with dark blue skin and eyes that had seen centuries of conflict. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. You will explain what you have done. Danny looked at Kira. She nodded slightly. They had agreed to tell the truth. There was no point in lying anymore. Too many people had seen what happened in the medical bay. Too many questions were being asked. Kira stepped forward. 6 weeks ago, I made a mistake. During a routine examination, I accidentally injected Danny Miller with compound Zeth-9. This compound was designed for Krethian physiology only. It should have killed him. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Krethian ambassador, a being made of dark red crystal, leaned forward with interest. But he did not die. Kira continued. His body adapted to the compound. It integrated the formula into his DNA and made it stronger. When the Nyx fever outbreak occurred, we used Danny's transformed blood to create a treatment. That treatment saved every human patient on this ship. The murmurs grew louder. Some voices were angry. Others were scared. Danny heard words like contamination and threat and quarantine floating through the crowd. High Commander ThHFY raised his hand for silence. You are telling us that this human has been genetically altered by one of our most experimental compounds. And you kept this information secret for 6 weeks. Yes, Kira said. I was afraid of how the Council would react. I was trying to protect the human exchange program. You were trying to protect yourself, the Krethian ambassador said, his crystalline voice sharp and cold. You made an error that should have killed this human. When it did not, you hid the evidence. Kira lowered her head. That is also true. The Velnorian High Physician, an ancient female with pale blue skin, stood from her seat. This human must be quarantined immediately. We do not know what other changes the compound has caused. He could be carrying diseases we cannot detect. He could be dangerous. Dangerous? Danny finally spoke. He had been quiet until now, letting Kira explain. But he could not stay silent any longer. I just saved 30 human lives. How does that make me dangerous? You are not natural anymore, the High Physician said. You are something new, something unknown. And unknown things are always dangerous. The Torvakian general, a massive warrior with gray skin and tusks like a boar, slammed his fist on the arm of his chair. We should take his blood for study. All of it if necessary. The compound he carries could revolutionize medicine for the entire galaxy. You want to drain me like a resource? Danny asked, his voice rising. You are a resource. A valuable one. Your personal feelings are irrelevant. Danny felt his hands clench into fists. The strange energy he had felt before was building inside him again. He could feel the strength in his muscles, the power waiting to be released. He could probably fight his way out of this room if he had to. But that would only prove them right. That would only show them that he was dangerous. So he forced himself to stay calm. He forced his hands to unclench. And he waited. Then Nathan stood up. He had been sitting in the human section of the chamber, still weak from his recovery, but determined to be there. He walked slowly down the stairs until he reached the central platform and stood beside Danny. May I speak? Nathan asked. High Commander ThHFY nodded. You may. Nathan turned to face the assembled council. His voice was quiet at first, but it grew stronger with every word. I was dying. 2 days ago, I had black veins covering my body. I had gray eyes. I could feel my organs shutting down one by one. I knew I was going to die, and I had accepted it. Then Danny gave me an injection. Something made from his own blood. And now I am standing here, alive, because of what he did. He paused to let that sink in. Humans have always been the newcomers in this galaxy. We have always been looked down on. You think we are young and foolish. You think we are aggressive and dangerous. You think we are a threat to galactic peace. And maybe some of those things are true. We are young. We are aggressive. We do spread quickly, but that is not all we are. Nathan walked to the edge of the platform, looking up at the council members in their high seats. When our ancestors lived in caves, The world tried to kill them with cold and hunger and predators. They adapted. They built fire. They made tools. They survived. When diseases swept through our cities, killing millions, we did not give up. We invented vaccines. We built hospitals. We learned to fight back. When our planet could no longer support us, we did not accept extinction. We built ships and flew to the stars. He pointed at Danny. You gave Danny something that should have killed him. Something that has killed every other carbon-based species you tested it on. And what did he do? He took that poison and turned it into medicine. He turned death into life. That is not dangerous. That is human. The chamber was silent. Danny kid. See council members exchanging glances, whispering to each other. Some looked thoughtful. Others still looked afraid. Then a new voice spoke up. It was Dr. Lisa Grant, a human xenobiologist who had been on the sanctuary for almost a year. She walked down the steps carrying data tablets in both hands. I have been secretly analyzing Danny's cellular structure for the past 2 weeks, she said. With his permission, I should add. What I have found is remarkable. She held up the tablets so the council could see the images on the screens. Compound Zeth9 is not just surviving in Danny's body. It is evolving. His cells have taken the original formula and improved it in ways we could never have designed. The new compound is more stable, more powerful, and more adaptable than anything we have ever created. The Krethian ambassador leaned forward. More adaptable? What do you mean? I mean that Danny's blood might be the key to creating treatments for other species, not just humans. With proper research, we could modify the compound to work with Valnorian physiology, with Torvakian physiology, perhaps even with Krethian silicon-based biology. Another wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. This time, Danny heard different words. Words like cure and breakthrough and hope. High Commander Thrall raised his hand for silence again. You are saying that this human accident might lead to the greatest medical discovery in galactic history? Lisa nodded. That is exactly what I am saying. But only if we work together. Only if we let Danny help us instead of treating him like a threat. The commander looked at Danny for a long moment. His 4 purple eyes studied the human standing on the platform below. Danny did not look away. He met that gaze directly, without fear. The council will deliberate, Thrall finally said. You will wait in the holding area until we reach a decision. All of you. Guards escorted Danny, Kira, Nathan, and Lisa out of the chamber. The doors closed behind them with a heavy thud. They sat in the holding area for 3 hours. No one spoke much. There was nothing to say. Their fate was in the hands of aliens who had spent centuries looking down on humanity. All they could do was wait. Finally, the doors opened and a guard called their names. As Danny walked back into the council chamber, he tried to read the faces of the council members. Some looked angry. Some looked pleased. Most were unreadable. High Commander Thrall stood from his high seat and spoke. The council has reached a decision. Danny held his breath. The human exchange program will not be terminated. Danny let out the breath he had been holding. Furthermore, Thrall continued, the program will be expanded. Danny Miller will lead a new interspecies medical research team dedicated to exploring the unique properties of human biology. Kira will serve as his primary research partner. Their work will be funded by the Galactic Council and given full access to all medical facilities and resources. Danny could hardly believe what he was hearing. He looked at Nathan, who was smiling. He looked at Lisa, who was nodding with satisfaction. He looked at Kira, whose 4 eyes were filled with tears of relief. One thing must be understood, Thrall said, his voice growing stern. You are being given a great opportunity. Do not waste it. Do not give us reason to regret this decision. The eyes of the galaxy are now watching humanity. Make sure they like what they see. Danny nodded. We will, Commander. I promise you that. As they left the council chamber, Danny felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope, real hope. Not just for himself, but for his entire species. The universe was about to learn what humans were truly capable of. The alarm woke Danny from a deep sleep. It was a sound he had never heard before on the sanctuary. Not the regular alert for emergencies. This was something worse. 3 long tones followed by 2 short ones. Repeated over and over. He jumped out of bed and ran to the door. In the hallway, crew members were rushing in every direction. Their faces were filled with fear. Some were crying. Others were praying in languages Danny did not understand. He grabbed a passing Volnorian by the arm. What is happening? The Volnorian's 4 eyes were wide with terror. A plague ship. They found a plague ship drifting in our sector. Survivors came aboard for help. Now the disease is spreading. Danny felt his stomach drop. What disease? Nyx fever. The Volnorian pulled away and continued running. Danny stood frozen in the hallway. He had heard of Nyx fever. Everyone in the galaxy had heard of it. It was the worst disease known to any species. It killed within 48 hours. There was no cure. There was no treatment. Once you caught it, you were dead. He ran to the medical bay. The scene there was chaos. Doctors and nurses were rushing between patients. The beds were already full. More sick people were lying on the floor, on tables, anywhere there was space. Black veins spread across their skin like cracks in glass. They were coughing up dark blood. They were screaming in pain. Danny found Nathan in the middle of it all, helping a young Volnorian child onto a bed. Nathan's face was pale and covered in sweat. How many are infected? Danny asked. At least 200. Maybe more. It is spreading faster than we can track it. Nathan wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. The captain has ordered an evacuation of all non-essential personnel. But it might be too late. The disease is already in the air systems. Danny looked around the room. He saw humans, Volnorians, Krethians, Torvakians, all of them lying side by side, all of them dying the same horrible death. Nyx fever did not care what species you were. It killed everyone equally. What about you? Danny asked. You should evacuate. Nathan shook his head. I am a medic. These people need help. I am not leaving. Danny wanted to argue, but he knew it was pointless. Nathan was stubborn. He would never abandon patients who needed him. It was one of the things Danny respected most about his friend. They worked together for hours. They gave pain medication to those who were suffering. They held the hands of those who were dying. They moved bodies to the morgue when there was nothing more to be done. The whole time, Danny waited for the symptoms to start. He waited to feel the fever, to see the black veins on his own skin. But the symptoms never came. By the end of the first day, Nathan was coughing. By the middle of the second day, he collapsed. Danny caught him before he hit the ground and carried him to an empty bed. The black veins were already spreading up Nathan's neck. No, Danny whispered. Not you. Please, not you. Nathan opened his eyes. They were turning gray, the color being drained from them by the disease. It is okay, Danny. I knew the risks. I accepted them. There has to be something we can do. Some treatment we have not tried. Nathan smiled weakly. You know there is not. Nyx fever has no cure. It never has. Danny stood by his friend's bed and watched the disease slowly kill him. Around them, the medical bay had grown quieter. Not because people were getting better. Because they were dying. One by one, the screams stopped. The coughs faded. The bodies went still. Then Danny had an idea. A crazy, desperate, probably stupid idea. He found Kira in a corner of the medical bay, treating a young human woman who had only hours left to live. Danny grabbed Kira's arm and pulled her aside. "The compound in my blood," he said quickly. "Could it help them?" Kira stared at him. "What?" "9. It is a regenerative serum. My body adapted to it. Maybe it can fight the disease. Maybe my blood can help them." Kira shook her head. "We do not know what your blood would do to other humans. It could save them. It could kill them faster. It could turn them into something we cannot predict. Look around you, Kira. They are already dying. All of them. Every single one. What do we have to lose?" Kira was silent for a long moment. Danny could see her mind working, considering the risks, calculating the odds. Finally, she nodded. "We will need to synthesize a treatment using your blood cells. It will take time, and there is no guarantee it will work. Then let us start now." They worked through the night. Danny gave blood until he was dizzy. Kira processed the samples, mixing them with other compounds, trying to create something that could be safely injected into other people. They failed 3 times. The 4th attempt looked promising. By morning, they had a single dose of the experimental treatment. "Who do we give it to?" Kira asked. Danny did not hesitate. "Nathan." They went to Nathan's bed. He was barely conscious now. The black veins covered most of his body. His breathing was slow and shallow. He had maybe 6 hours left. Probably less. Danny held up the syringe. "Nathan, can you hear me? I have something that might help you. But I need you to understand. It is experimental. We do not know what it will do. It might save you. It might not. Do you want me to try?" Nathan's gray eyes focused on Danny's face. He tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. "Do it." Danny injected the treatment into Nathan's arm. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Nathan's condition did not improve. It did not get worse either, which was strange. By now, he should have been dead. But he was still breathing. Still holding on. Then, slowly, the black veins began to fade. Kira watched with her 4 eyes wide in disbelief. "It is working. I do not understand how, but it is working." The color returned to Nathan's skin. His breathing grew stronger. His eyes opened, and they were brown again, not gray. He looked up at Danny and frowned in confusion. "What did you do to me?" Danny felt tears running down his face. He did not try to hide them. Something impossible. Word spread quickly through the medical bay. The humans who were still alive, about 30 of them, all received the treatment. One by one, they began to recover. The black veins disappeared. The fevers broke. People who had been hours from death sat up in their beds and asked for water, but the treatment only worked on humans. The alien patients continued to die. Kira ran tests, trying to understand why, but she could not find an answer. "It is the human DNA," she finally said. "Your species is compatible with Danny's transformed blood. Other species are not. We would need years of research to create treatments for them." Danny watched the alien patients die while the humans recovered. It did not feel like a victory. It felt like a cruel joke. They had found a cure, but it could only save a fraction of the people who needed it. Still, 100% of the humans survived. Every single one. For the first time in galactic history, Nyx fever had been defeated, and the entire galaxy was about to find out how. 1 year had passed since the day Danny Miller stood before the Galactic Council and changed the future of humanity. The research station was called Dawn. It floated in orbit around a small moon in a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from the busy trade routes and political centers. It was a place for science, for discovery, for hope. And Danny was its commander. He walked through the clean white corridors of the station, nodding to the researchers he passed. There were humans and Velnorians working side by side. Krethians and Torvakians sharing meals in the cafeteria. Species that had once looked at each other with suspicion and fear now worked together toward a common goal. The first year had been hard. There were setbacks and failures. Experiments that did not work. Theories that fell apart. Political pressure from council members who still did not trust humans. More than once, Danny had wondered if they would succeed at all. But they kept going. They kept trying. And slowly, the breakthroughs began to come. 3 months after the station opened, they created a version of the treatment that worked on Valnorians. It was not perfect. The survival rate was only 60% at first. But it was better than zero. It was better than certain death. 6 months later, they cracked the code for Torvakian physiology. The survival rate jumped to 85%. The Torvakian general, who had wanted to drain Danny's blood, sent a formal message of apology. He even offered to fund an expansion of the research program. Now, at the 1-year mark, they were close to a universal treatment. Something that could be modified for any carbon-based species in the galaxy. Nyx fever, the disease that had terrorized civilizations for thousands of years, would soon be nothing more than a bad memory. Danny found Kira in her laboratory, staring at a holographic display of molecular structures. She looked tired but happy. Her 4 purple eyes were bright with excitement. "We did it," she said when Danny walked in. The final tests came back positive. The universal treatment works. Every species we tested it on showed full recovery. Danny sat down in the chair next to her. "How long until it can be distributed?" "A few more weeks of production. Then we start sending it to medical facilities across the galaxy. Within a year, Nyx fever will be completely eliminated." Danny let that sink in. A year ago, he had been a nobody. A human medic on an alien ship, just trying to survive and learn. Now he was part of something that would save billions of lives. "You know what the strangest part is?" he said. "None of this would have happened if you had not made that mistake." Kira smiled. It was still strange to see a Valnorian smile. Their faces were not really built for it. But Kira had learned the expression from working with humans. She used it more and more these days. "I used to think that mistake was the worst moment of my life," she said. "I thought I had killed you. I thought I had ruined everything. But now I think it might have been the best thing I ever did. Do not let that go to your head. You still owe me for almost murdering me." Kira laughed. Another expression she had learned from humans. "I think saving the galaxy from an incurable plague makes us even. I suppose it does." Danny left the laboratory and walked to the observation deck. It was his favorite place on the station. A large room with windows that looked out at the stars. He came here whenever he needed to think. Whenever he needed to remember why they were doing all of this. Nathan was already there, sitting in one of the chairs with a cup of coffee in his hands. He looked healthier than he had in years. The treatment had not just cured his Nyx fever. It had fixed old injuries, cleared up chronic conditions, made him stronger than he had ever been. The same was true for every human who had received the treatment. They were not like Danny. They did not have his level of strength or healing. But they were better than they had been before, healthier, more resilient. A new generation of humanity was being born, one injection at a time. "The big day tomorrow," Nathan said as Danny sat down next to him. "Yes, it is. Tomorrow, the first shipments of the universal treatment would leave the station. They would travel to 100 different worlds, bringing hope to billions of beings who had lived in fear of Nyx fever their entire lives. It was the beginning of a new era. "You know what I keep thinking about?" Nathan said. "All those aliens who used to look down on us, who thought we were weak and primitive and dangerous. I wonder what they think now." Danny looked out at the stars. "I think they're starting to understand." "Understand what?" "That we are not like them. We do not have their strength or their long lives or their advanced technology. But we have something else. Something they never expected. Nathan raised an eyebrow. What is that? We adapt. No matter what the universe throws at us, we find a way to survive. We take poison and turn it into medicine. We take fear and turn it into courage. We take the impossible and make it possible. That is what it means to be human. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he raised his coffee cup in a toast. To humanity. Danny smiled. To humanity. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars drift slowly past the windows. Somewhere out there, children were growing up on human colony worlds. Children who would hear the story of Danny Miller and the alien injection. Children who would learn that their species was not weak or primitive or insignificant. They were humans. They were adaptable. They were resilient. And they were just getting started. The door to the observation deck opened, and Lisa walked in with a data tablet in her hands. She looked excited about something. Danny, you need to see this. She handed him the tablet. On the screen was a message from the Galactic Council. Danny read it twice to make sure he understood. They want to name it after you, Lisa said. The treatment? They want to call it the Miller Protocol. Danny stared at the message. His name would be remembered across the entire galaxy. Every time someone was cured of Nix fever, they would hear the name of a human. A species they had once dismissed as weak and unimportant. Tell them yes, Danny said. Tell them I am honored. Lisa nodded and left to send the response. Nathan clapped Danny on the shoulder. The Miller Protocol. That is going to look great on your tombstone. Who says I am planning to die anytime soon? Nathan laughed. Fair point. With that stuff in your blood, you might outlive us all. Danny did not know how long he would live. Kira's tests suggested his lifespan had been extended significantly. Maybe by decades. Maybe by centuries. There was no way to know for certain. The compound was still evolving inside him, still changing him in ways they did not fully understand. But that was okay. The unknown did not scare Danny anymore. He had learned to embrace it, to see it as an opportunity rather than a threat. That night, Danny sat alone in his quarters and wrote a message to his mother on Earth. He told her about the treatment, about the Miller Protocol, about everything they had accomplished. He told her that he missed her and hoped to visit soon. He told her that he was proud to be her son. Then he added one final line. We showed them what humans can do, Mom, and this is only the beginning. He sent the message and went to bed. Tomorrow would be a busy day. The first shipments needed to be prepared. Press conferences needed to be held. A new chapter in galactic history was about to begin. But as Danny closed his eyes and drifted off to sleep, he felt at peace. He had started this journey as a nobody from Earth, a soldier with a bad shoulder and too many bad memories. Now he was something more. Not just for himself, but for his entire species. The universe had spent centuries telling humanity what it could not do, what it would never achieve, what it should not even attempt. But humans were not good at listening. They never had been. They never would be. And the galaxy was finally starting to understand why that was the most dangerous thing about them. Not their strength, not their technology, not their numbers. Their stubborn, beautiful, impossible refusal to accept that anything was beyond their reach. The stars waited. The future called, and humanity was ready to answer.